A few weeks before the release of Half-Life Alyx, Valve released 3 clips which do an amazing job of showcasing the gameplay of their flagship VR game. I'm going to break down what makes these gameplay clips so successful and how you can apply these techniques to your own game. Alright, so I'm just going to walk through each of these gameplay clips and explain why I think they included each little moment inside of them, because even though these aren't edited trailers, I think that there's still a pacing to them that is really good and creates some sort of dramatic tension and a sense of a beginning, middle, and end that I think is also applicable to trailers and also to gameplay clips. Now, I'm not going to be watching these in real time. I'm definitely going to be starting and stopping a whole lot just to explain things so that you can see them, and probably marking up the screen here and there so then that I can draw your attention to the right things. So if you're just looking for a straight, quick reaction video, this is not that. You can watch plenty of other YouTube videos out there, people just watching in real time and talking about it, but that's not the way I do things. I just really want to frame by frame in some cases and just explain what's going on. So let's dive right in. Okay, right here, this is a really small thing, but so they're looking around the subway environment, and then they look up. I've heard from a lot of level designers for first-person games is that the player never looks up in a first-person game, so you shouldn't count on them doing that. Like, if you have some very pertinent information, like even if it's this giant neon sign, I mean, it might have to be a giant neon sign for them to see it, because just everyone's vision is laser focused ahead. Whereas in VR, if the environment especially is very pretty, like it is in here, you're really gonna just want to look everywhere. And a big part of what they're trying to do with these gameplay clips is distinguish and differentiate what makes Half-Life Alyx so different from a traditional keyboard and mouse or gamepad game. And I don't know if this is what they're doing here, but I think just by, looking at this this hole in the ceiling here, they're just saying, hey, this is a game where you're going to want to look up. There's some verticality to this whole thing, which that's a thing that I think is pretty different from traditional games.
Here we go.
Another thing I want to call attention to is just the capture artists and their performance in these gameplay clips, because they do a really, really good job of playing to the camera. People say all the time that they want, raw gameplay, totally unbroken raw, no editing or anything like that. I want it raw. But if that's what they want, this is not what they're actually getting here, because they're really doing a good job of just making things very clear. So, they use the gravity gloves to yank this magazine, and then they just hold it in the center of the screen for a little bit before just kind of gets stowed away in their inventory. Whereas I'm sure the person who's doing the performance for this is a really good Half-Life Alyx player, so they could have just gone yank and then toss it away right away without even looking at it. But they're doing a lot of this for the sake of the audience, so they can see, that was the gun magazine. And then it just makes things much more clear, so then that we can really, really soak in the information, because that's what they really want you to do with these gameplay clips. Just get a good idea of how this game plays, what you're doing in it, how you're interacting with it, what you're interacting with. And if they did everything too fast, then it would just not be as successful.
We're almost there.
Okay, so this is a really, really small moment, but it says a lot. So again, they're trying to differentiate from traditional non-VR games. And one of the things that you can do in VR is, use 2 hands simultaneously. If this were a non-VR game, this sort of moment of opening these doors would have to be this custom animated thing where, whenever there are this particular set of doors, you press a button and then you open the door and it plays the exact same animation every single time. But here, they could have used one hand at a time. They could have used one hand for both doors, but they decided to use both. And this really just makes this feel much more real and just natural to just what you would do in real life. And see, again, just small little performance things here just to make things a little bit cooler. So they load their gun, and then they just wait a little bit, and they really milk this moment of cocking the gun, as we've seen so many times in movies. Okay, and so here, again, they're performing for the camera. They're making everything really, slower than it would be if they're actually playing like for real. So for example, here, you can see this teleport UI here, which, I mean, they could have just tapped the thumbstick controller a little bit and just moved instantly, but instead they really deliberately throwing it out here, showing, okay, you can see these digital feet here, and then as soon as we're really soaking that in, then they teleport, rather than just saying, boop, teleport. Again, just makes things very clear. And see, again, they're really performing. They're trying to really embody Alyx in this gameplay clip. They're not, like, when I'm looking at this gameplay clip, even though I'm thinking about the capture artist behind this, I'm also just thinking about what acting choices that they're making. Person just playing on their VR headset at home, they're going to be doing all sorts of weird things, because people, when they play games, they do things like jump up on the tables or whatever, and they goof around. But here, they're embodying the character, so when the zombie comes through the glass, they go, whoa! Which you probably wouldn't do when you're actually playing the game. I mean, maybe you want to do it for an audience because you're on Twitch or something like that, or making a YouTube video, but you're probably just going to be like, oh, okay, zombies in my face, but you're not going to do the full, like, whoa, you scared me. But they're doing that just to make the moment feel a bit more authentic, and just make it a little bit more cinematic, because it's just embodying the character rather than being like, a gamer at home. And then here they sort of take a breath here, because they just had this encounter with these two zombies, and the people watching it probably very much enjoyed watching that. And before they want to move on to the next thing, they're just pacing it out a little bit. Let them take just a few breaths before moving on to the next thing. It's sort of like if you think about sitcoms on TV, where the actors are waiting for the audience to finish laughing before they move on to the next thing. I think sort of same energy here, where they're like, okay, we'll give the audience a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next thing. If you think about the peaks and valleys of like pacing for like a trailer or pretty much anything, it got really intense, and then, okay, we're going to take a breath before we're going to build up to the next thing. Okay, so they're just showing off at this point. Again, showing the VR interaction of this head crab, and you see all the limbs. They all have realistic looking physics. Again, if this was not a VR game, this would be a thing that would have to be hand animated to happen, or maybe some sort of simulation would be possible, but like the hand would have to be animated by itself. I don't know. I don't make games, but they're just showing you can interact with all this stuff. And I mean, if you're a Half-Life fan, you might be wanting to do this sort of thing because it's the first time that you can see a head crab in sort of a real size. So again, can't do this in non-VR unless it's programmed to do that. And see, again, they're just playing for the camera, yank another magazine, this time not holding it in front of their face as quickly, because we kind of get it at this point, but still playing for the camera, not just going, yoop, boop, 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 making it so that we can't see what did they pick up? And, really small moment here. I was talking about verticality and like looking up. Here they're crouching just by crouching in real life. If this was a non-VR game, then there would just be standing state and crouch. And then if they wanted to be able to see through the floorboards, then not the floorboards, the 2x4s, then the boards would have to be the exact position so then that when you're crouched, you can see through them. But in VR, you can move your headset wherever the heck you want, so you can look through the floorboards. I'm doing it again. I said floorboards. You can look through the boards here, or you can look them through here, or sideways, whatever have you. And so another little performance note here is, stuff in VR doesn't have weight to it because it's virtual. It's not real. The only thing that is real is the controllers that you're holding, which I assume they're Valve Index controllers here. So they're not that heavy. It's not like they don't have any weight at all, but they're not going to weigh as much as these 2x4s. So the person capturing this is just playing up the weight a little bit. I'm sure these boards, when you're actually in the game, you could throw them around wherever, but here they're just treating them like real boards and trying to show off that weight, even though it doesn't actually exist. And you see here, they sort of duck around this corner. They're here and then they go like this, which, this zombie is pretty chill here. They don't look like they're going anywhere. So it's not really super necessary to duck around the corner, but again, they're just embodying the character. And I feel like there's probably going to be a lot of people who will actually want to do this while playing this game because they really want to just live out the fantasy of being Alyx in this Half-Life game. So again, it plays well for the camera, and it also sort of fits into our ideas of, film language and things that we've seen in movies. How many movies have you seen where they're ducking around a corner? So it's now you get to do that. So I can see why they did that. Oh, and another small little thing here. When they're moving the boards, you can see, there's no guns in either hands because they're just using both hands to yank these boards. And here, really quickly, blink and you'll miss it, you can see there's a gun selection UI here. So they really quickly switch from hand to gun, which for people who go frame by frame, they'll notice, that's a weapon select UI. Okay, so I want to talk about a couple things here. First of all is the idea of pacing out new information. So a really good thing that these gameplay clips do is just constantly show new things, which is something that you want to do in trailers, but if you can, do it in gameplay clips too, because if it starts getting repetitive, then people get a little bit bored because they're just expecting new things all the time. So one example here is they shoot this thing on the wrist of this zombie, and then it sort of blows up. So that's a new thing. And another little capture note here: this head crab is very conveniently placed on, or very conveniently landed on this machine. This is pure speculation because I didn't work on these, but I feel like they probably did a little custom scripting or whatever you call it, so then that the head crab would just land here. Zombie blows up here, and then the head crab immediately goes here and then lands here, because then you can see all this wonderful interaction of the machine moving and then the head crab moving and reacting with natural physics to the machine. And if they had to just rely on a random number generator to have that head crab land on that machine that way every single time, then they'd probably still be capturing right now. Again, speculation, but if it were me, I would say, if we decided we really wanted to have this head crab land on this machine and show all this, then maybe let's cheat a little bit so then it happens every single time we capture this. And also, this might have happened just organically from while they're capturing. Maybe one time they did a take, it landed there, and then they saw that the machine moved it around. Oh my God, amazing. We have to have this in the gameplay clip. Let's just put a little thing because you know, I messed up the rest of the take or something like that. So it doesn't hurt to just do like a little bit of either fixing up or some custom work to just make your gameplay clips just show a little bit more of the idealized scenario, or just show a little bit of some ideas that you want to get across that if it's left up to randomness, you're just never going to get in a single unbroken take. And then you see some more interaction there. Gross. And so here is the weapon upgrade machine, and they do a good job of just showing the right information so then that you understand exactly what this thing is. So they insert the gun here, and then you know, they're here. Immediately they look to the left, and then they're going to look up to illustrate what's going on here. So we see there's this list of things here. We got reflex sight, bullet reservoir, burst fire, laser sight, and then they look up, and then we see this gun diagram here, and then they look back down and they sort of mouse over or put their finger over something, and then you can see now this reflex sight is showing up. Then they look back down again, they're like, oh crap, no resin, and they look back longingly and grab the gun, and hopefully they'll get some resin to upgrade the gun later. Okay, so this is a cute little moment where they take this hard hat and they put it on, which it's cute, and I think it would have been totally fine on its own, but they add just a little bit more in here. They're really layering on a lot of information. So they lift up the hat and you see, whoop, there's this little bit of resin underneath it, which they're showing that, hey, if you sort of root around things and look underneath things, then you're going to be rewarded possibly by finding little goodies, and you can upgrade your gun when you do that. And see again, just holding that there clearly in front of the camera so then that you can see what it is. I mean, even if you don't actually know what it is, you can just see that it's something different. Little physics interaction thing there.
Ew.
And so here they're just really just showing this disgusting grub, but beautiful prop, and then showing these sort of wrist inventory things here, which hasn't been shown until this gameplay clip. Again,
Ew.
you know, new ideas. Okay, let's talk about this barrel here. You know, this is not an accidental barrel they have here. You can see this lid is just enough on this barrel so then that, you know, the gun here would fit in, but not much else. So they're really playing up the level of interaction that you can have and just do things that you would do in real life. Again, if this was a non-VR game, you would see this barrel here in, you know, all the levels, that exact same barrel and the exact same animation of doing this. But in VR, you know, you can do this any which way. You could probably just pick up the lid if you wanted to, but they decided to use the gun to open it. And also another thing to note is, you know, they could have probably used their hands or their fingers, but not everyone is going to have Valve Index controllers, but everyone is going to be able to just sort of move things around with their gun, whether it's an Oculus controller or a Vive wand or something like that. They're just really, again, playing up the interaction. This is a unique VR sort of thing you can do. And then also showing, again, you can be rewarded by looking through all these things, and you found resin. they could have picked up the things individually, but they decided to swat everything aside. I think probably because people reacted really strongly to, there's that one shotgun scene in the announce trailer where they're like this and then getting the bullets behind. So, might as well give the audience more of what they liked in the first look at the game. A little goof here.
Oh, a health station.
Russell, the Combine use these. Are they safe for people?
Yeah, I use them all the time.
Are you sure?
Yeah, they're great.
And so this moment here, first of all, this feels very Skyrim. So they're actually walking in room scale in this part. They decided not to teleport, so they're probably capturing in a decently large space. And you can see how you can remove items from your wrist, inventory, insert this capsule here. And then again, the capture artist is just really playing up this moment. They're showing all the things that are cool, like they're really deliberately looking over to the right so you can see this grub just get destroyed and have all the gross yellow pus come out or whatever it is. And then they're really acting out this moment where it's like, do I want to? It seems kind of gross. Whereas, they could have just gone, boop, I'm cool with this. It's totally fine.
Ow, ow, ow.
And so here's one part where they're showing how the fingers work. If you have the index controllers, and then they're looking over to see the health. One little thing I would have done differently if I'd done this was just have the health be just a little bit lower so then that you could see the hearts filling up a little bit as the machine is being used, because you're already at maximum health here. So the information is a little bit obscured, even though we're talking about, hey, these are health stations. But then they clearly look at their hand so that you can just see that interface there and understand how that works.
Hey, you were right. These are great.
And one little small thing here is you can see when they use the teleport here, they don't hold it like they did earlier on in the gameplay clip, because at this point, you've already understood how the teleportation works. So you can just whiz by that. That's a thing to think about with gameplay clips or trailers is, you're giving the audience new information, but whenever you have redundant information in the subsequent parts of the trailer or gameplay clip, it's not as necessary to embellish as it was in the early parts of the trailer where you're still sort of educating them about how the game works. So you kind of, whiz by that thing and then move on to the next bit of information, which you should spend some more time explaining how that works.
Great.
And so here they leave and they toss the hat off, grab another magazine. Again, they do it real quick because you already understand how that works. We've seen the magazine, I think, 3 times at this point. They teleport forward and you can see there's this highlight over this barrel indicating that it's interactable, and they decide to just knock it over. Okay, so this scene here, it's another combat encounter, which they've already shown a few. And again, we want to show some new information, so then that it's just a little bit more interesting, showing something different. And what they're doing here is, well, first of all, they're choosing to not just be a total badass and just, pop a whole bunch of bullets into them from afar, so they're, dead on the spot. And then they just stroll past. Instead, they're pacing out the shooting so then that the zombies just have a better chance to get closer. So you get to see a little bit more of what they do. You get to see a little bit more detail in their models. So, for example, here, this zombie on the right, you blink and you'll miss it. This zombie here sort of knocks this suitcase up into the camera, so you see that they can interact with the objects around you, is really, really quick. It was a little bit hard to see, but it's still fine, because they do the same thing with this zombie in the back here. And you can see they have these little barrels, I can't draw, that they're going to knock around and just show a little bit of that physics interaction. And see, now you can see these zombies in this nice light, this nice highlight here, so you can just see how detailed they are. And this zombie they could have killed a while ago, but they're slowing it down so then that you can see that they can hit you, because if they were just going through and just popping them dead as soon as they see them, then people would probably think, okay, super easy game, this is going to be lame. But just for the dramatic tension of it, they're really just pacing it out so then that it's a little bit more exciting. I mean, also, not everyone is going to have the same level of skill playing this game. So for some people, they're probably going to be fumbling at the scene, and this might just happen organically. Whereas other people, maybe they're super good at shooting things in VR, and they'll just mow them down. But for the sake of the gameplay clip, it's just more exciting to watch. Another little thing I want to point to with the performance is they grab this like propane canister, and when they do it, you can see their fingers here. They have this one finger sticking out from the hand, which I'm sure they could have just gone like this and then stopped pointing, but it just makes it a little bit clear to just see that sort of silhouette of the hand. Just really, really subtle thing. And then like right before they catch them, the hand opens. You can see all the fingers here before they catch it. Just, again, playing for the camera.
Nice throw.
And, that little throwaway thing with Russell here, just explaining that there's some dialogue scripting in there, so then that when Alyx throws the canister and successfully blows it up, then Russell will just, take note of that and say, cool, nice throw. So, who knows what other sort of things will happen in the game dynamically based off of things that you do, which are cool. But, another little thing just to show how dynamic the game is. And so here, they don't kill these zombies, and they just sort of move on, which, it may or may not just be saying, hey, you can move on from a zombie. You don't have to kill them all. It could also just be building dramatic tension, which it's certainly doing, especially as the music starts ramping up here, because, they've basically woken up these zombies and they're going to be coming after you. So the audience is probably going to have that in their back of their mind saying, what are you doing? You got to kill the zombies. And then when they get to this door, we come back to this familiar situation, which, it's matching what happened in the very beginning of the gameplay clip, which is, you open the door with two hands, but this time it's locked. Building in those complications here, which seems like a very tutorial level design sort of thing to have. But this is in video form, so they're clearly the person doing this knew that this was going to be locked, but for the camera and dramatic tension, they, tested it so that you understand, this thing is locked somehow. And then, so, we can see here this big pipe just sticking out here, but for the sake of the audience, they decided to just look all the way through the door so you can see this handle is barred. And it's a little bit low in the frame. It would have been good to have it a little bit more in the center, but it's just nitpicking. So you can see, you can look through the door, yank this thing out, toss it, stagger the zombie. This is just showing, hey, in this game, there are scenarios where you can just figure things out and do what you would do in real life. If this was a non-VR game, there would just be, tons of these doors in the game which had this exact same bar that would play the exact same animation for you whenever you pressed X or something like that to unlock it. But in VR, I think you'd feel a little bit more clever for just doing this and, moving the pipe around with your own hands. And so for this gameplay bit, they're really, accelerating the performance, making it a little bit more frantic. They're not as kind of skilled at using the gun here because they're a little bit panicked. And then here they shoot the last bullet at this head crab, and then you can see that they're testing the trigger here. They're like, oh crap, no ammo, even though, this red light and all this would have indicated no ammo, but they're just playing it up for the camera, which is it's fine. It works. It keeps the audience in the moment if you're acting it out like you're the character basically. And so they're just kind of looking around and they're, oh my god, I'm surrounded, and then the zombie slashes at them, and then we cut to black. Like I said, this is a really great gameplay clip. There's just so many things through this whole thing. Lots of new ideas, lots of questions answered, really good performance, makes it very, very clear. Like, one of the things that I always say about trailers, any sort of video of your game, is that clarity is really a big part of the presentation. It's not quantity of information, it's clarity and retention, so that people understand what's going on, because a lot of games are really difficult to understand because there are just so many different mechanics. Certainly first-person shooter games have to do a little bit less legwork because they deal with very familiar sort of player verbs like shoot and run, that sort of thing. But still, there's just a lot of things in here that they're communicating about what makes this a unique experience versus if this was just a keyboard and mouse and gamepad game. And hopefully it makes it extra compelling and people can actually see in real time just what makes it so unique. So I think this is a really good job here. And so something else I want to talk about is the choice to use teleportation movement in this clip. Because it's, teleportation movement is somewhat controversial in the VR game space. So if you're not familiar, what you've just seen is teleport. And the alternative is what's called full locomotion, which is when you're using the thumbstick to move forward instead of teleporting. And the thing with full locomotion is that it looks much more like traditional keyboard and mouse or gamepad gameplay, because there's no the blinking to black. There's just smooth motion from one point to the other, which looks great for people who are watching on YouTube or something like that. But for people like me, if you're actually playing it in VR and the world moves, but your body's not moving, you just get super nauseated. Like, when I see full locomotion gameplay, I know that that's going to make me super incredibly sick, so I need the teleportation movement. Some people are totally fine with it, and that's great, but it's not for me. The question is, why didn't they go with full locomotion for this first gameplay clip? My theory is that I think that they just really want to make sure that people understand that this VR experience is going to be comfortable for you, because the VR is a really big buy. You have to get a PC or just expensive piece of hardware in order to just play a game. It's a bigger risk to alienate an entire audience rather than release a teleport clip that hardcore VR people see and say, oh man, teleport? Because also the hardcore fans are probably also going to go and watch the second clip, which does feature full locomotion. I think it was most important for them to just say, hey, don't worry, this is going to be a comfortable experience no matter what you do. It's cool, the water's safe. Even though initially I thought, hey, why didn't they show full locomotion? That would have looked really good. I think that using teleport for the first video was a good choice, because then people who do absolutely get sick from full locomotion get to breathe easy. for me, for example, when I saw a video of the game Boneworks, which is all full locomotion, I thought, nope, there's no way I'm going to play that game. I will 100% throw up or start sweating or whatever. As soon as I start playing that, I'm going to nope the heck out. Because also you have to think about the people who already are playing VR games and already know that they can only do teleport, like me, for example. All right, so this video ended up being way longer than I expected it to be. So I'm going to break these clips up into 3 clips. So I'll release another video tomorrow for the second gameplay clip, and then the one after that, I'll release the day after that. But I hope you enjoyed watching this. Please leave a comment below if there's anything in particular that you feel like you learned from this, or if any questions that you have, and I'd be delighted to answer them. And also, I just want to give a quick shout out to my top Patreon supporters, which, by the way, I have a Patreon, which people can use if they'd like to throw some money my way for things that I do, like write my newsletter, get some early access to videos, and also I have a monthly Q&A where I answer your questions, and at the top tier I have a monthly group call where you can hang out for about an hour with a whole bunch of other people, just talk about trailers or what have you, and it's usually a pretty good time. So again, thank you so much for watching this. I'm gonna get all these videos out before the release of Half-Life Alyx. I'm super excited to play the finished version, and hope that this is also just educational for you if you're a game developer or aspiring game developer who's looking to make gameplay clips, trailers for your game, whatever. And yeah, I'll see you next video.